Think You Want to Be a Professor, brought to you by howtofutureproof.com. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about why you might want to be a professor and hopefully talk you out of it unless you're really committed and passionate to this as a career path for you. My name is Dr. Chris Davis. I've been teaching in higher ed for over 20 years now and an administrator across a variety of institutions, and I'm also the founder of howtofutureproof.com. So why do you want to be a professor? Is it because of the big money, the fortune that you think you can earn? Is it the fame? Do you have a passion for saving the world and you see this as the opportunity to be able to do that? Do you have a passion for sharing knowledge with others? These are all good reasons. I want to break down each one of them and talk about is a good fit for being a professor. The first one is the big money, and this is an important one. When I first started hiring faculty, I would intentionally not ask them how much they thought they were going to make because I wanted to make sure they weren't in it for the money. Because if you're in it for the money, this is not the right career path, even on a part-time basis for you. And let me break this down for you. So $1,500 for a 10-week class is not that atypical. There are schools that are going to pay more. There are schools that are going to pay less. There are schools that have longer terms, shorter terms. But that's a pretty good starting point. And you can plug in the other numbers and it's going to work out to being not much different. And let's say in that class you have about 30 students. Again, some places this is high, some places this is low. Gives a nice average idea to kind of think about what you're going to be making and how much time it's going to take, because that's really the kicker. In that class, you can expect to spend about 4 hours per week in class. So that's time whether you're online, interacting with students through discussion boards or synchronous chat, videos, roughly 4 hours. If you're face-to-face, that's very typical for a college class to spend 3-4 hours per week in class with the students. And you're going to spend about 8 hours per week prepping for that class. Especially if you've not taught a class before. Depending on the institution, you may have to be preparing all of your materials and activities in class, tests, assignments. And even if these are prepared for you, you still have time that you need to spend getting ready to teach in class. And it's hard to get shortcuts on these things. And you can expect with 30 students to spend about 15 hours per week grading papers. To give them thorough review, feedback, suggestions of how to improve. It's a time-consuming process. And you can expect about 3 hours per week for office hours, student communication, answering student emails, phone calls, those kinds of things. And when you work out all those hours and that you're only being paid $150 a week, that works out to about $5 an hour. This is not even little money, let alone big money. If your goal is to look for a part-time job where you can make decent money to supplement your income, and that's your primary goal and motivation, teaching in higher education is probably not the right path for you. You can do much better at an hourly rate at any fast food restaurant or driving for Uber, Lyft, or some other kind of opportunity like that. It's hard to imagine, since faculty in higher education have to have high degrees, have to have professional experience, but in terms of how that works out in terms of pay, generally it's pretty low. So don't do it for the money, because you're going to be unhappy, you're not going to do a good job, and you're going to do a disservice for your students. The fame. It's interesting. This is a lonely profession. You're in a classroom with your students. And certainly those 30 or so students, you have their attention more or less for the time that you're together. But it's not something that you're going to get famous. It's not something that you're generally going to get a lot of recognition for. We work on that as administrators, but it's hard to let people know how much we appreciate them in terms of faculty. So if you're looking for recognition, those kinds of things, it's kind of hard. And one of the things that's kind of deferred gratification is a lot of times your students won't appreciate you until later. I had experiences when I was first teaching. 2 years after I had a student in class, they would come back and say, now I understand why you made such a big deal about that topic in class. I'm just now using that in my real world experience in my job. But at the time that I was in your class, I didn't get it. I didn't know why this was so important. A lot of people, myself included, have an interest and passion about saving the world. And teaching, especially because as we look back on it, those of us who are attracted to teaching can say, hey, here was a professor or a teacher that really made a difference in my life and changed me to become the person that I am today in a better way. I want to give back. I want to do that. And it's true, we can make a difference for some. But it also, in higher education, very often, we're teaching people who, yes, some of them are committed, some of them are dedicated, some of them are open to learning, some of them want to learn and they don't have the time to be able to do it, and some of them just don't seem very motivated. And we do make a difference for some, but it's hard. You've got to be prepared to balance the fact that for some it's going to be great and you're really going to make a difference, but the majority of your students, that's not going to be the case. To me, the real key in being a professor in higher education and what needs to motivate you if this is a path that you want to go down is to share your passion. What are you passionate about and what are you knowledgeable about? For me, when I started teaching in higher ed, I was teaching computer skills. It's something that I had done professionally. It's something that I had in my own business doing consulting. And I enjoyed and I had a passion to share the experience and the knowledge that I had with other people who are interested in those topics and those things. And that was a perfect match. And that's what got me excited about higher education and doing this as a career and being fairly successful at it over the last 20 years as well. And that's what I look for in faculty, are people who can say, here's what I know a lot about in business, in accounting, in writing, in communication, in any topic. And so I have that knowledge and I have a passion to share my knowledge with other people. And that's really, to me, the key to being why you should want to be a professor. And as long as you have that motivation and drive, the other obstacles, the fact that you're not being paid much money, the fact you're not necessarily going to get a lot of recognition, aren't so important. So some final thoughts here. In teaching, it's not what you know, but what you can help your students learn. And so it's really important that you have knowledge, but it's not enough that you can get up in front of a classroom and talk about all the stuff that you know. The essential key of what makes somebody a great professor, an effective professor, is their ability to develop that knowledge and those skills in their students. And that's a challenging process. There are tips and tricks and approaches to make that better. But it begins with having that motivation of why you want to be a professor and the knowledge that you want to have to share. For more information, check out my blog at howtofutureproof.com. So you think you want to be a professor. And I'm going to have a lot of blog posts and entries, and I'll create more videos over time, kind of sharing some of my experience and what I've learned. One of my passions now is to help other people have a career like I've had. And that's a great place to check that out and stay in touch with what we're doing and other resources that may be of interest to you. And certainly feel free to reach out to me as well if you want to have an individual conversation or questions that I can answer for you. Have a great day.